A midlife crisis is more than just a cultural stereotype. It's a real psychological struggle that can surface between the ages of 40 and 60. Often triggered by aging, loss, or unmet expectations, it can actually lead individuals to question their identity, make impulsive choices, or abruptly abandon long term commitments. While not officially classified yet as a mental illness, the emotional and relational fallout is very real, especially for the spouses and families left behind. This podcast gives voice to those living through the aftermath, exposing the hidden pain, and seeking accountability, healing, and understanding. Thank you for joining us today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. Have you ever sat there after the bomb drop and thought, dang, I studied this, I understand human behavior. How did I not see this coming? And maybe even worse, maybe you think, if I couldn't see it, what does that say about me? Well, you know what, you guys, today we're going to dismantle that lie that you're telling yourself because what you didn't see was never being shown to you in the first place. Welcome back today to MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. I am your host, Trina Laird. And if you're part of this community, my bomb squad, you already know we don't sugarcoat what happens in a midlife crisis, especially when narcissistic patterns are involved. We talk about the real impact, the psychological whiplash, the rewriting of history, the sudden, shocking discard. And today, we're going to go deeper into something that confuses a lot of us. And that is, why do so many left behind spouses that are therapists, psychology majors, highly self-aware, emotionally intelligent people, why do we end up in these relationships? Why does the bomb drop hit us just as hard, if not harder? Because on the outside, people think, well, gosh, they were a therapist. They should have known. They could have seen this coming. But you know what, you guys? You didn't miss it because you're uneducated. You didn't miss it because you're naive. We all missed it because what we were being shown was a constructed version of the person we were with. I was a psych major. I understand behavior, patterns, emotional dynamics, and yet when my world blew up, it totally came out of left field. It was not a slow unraveling or a predictable breakdown. It was a total bomb drop. And I know I'm not alone in that. That's why we call it bomb drop. And I know so many of you listening, you are therapists, you're coaches, helpers, deep feelers, and you're sitting there wondering, how did I not see what I literally studied? Well, here's the deal. The narcissistic mask, it isn't just charming. It's not just charisma. It is adaptive. It studies you. It mirrors you. It reflects back to you, your values, your emotional language, your worldview. So if you're insightful, emotionally aware, and growth-oriented, they don't come in shallow. They come in deep. They talk about healing, childhood wounds, emotional connection, self-awareness, and you think, oh, finally, I'm talking to somebody who gets it. No, what you're actually connecting to is a reflection of yourself. If you're emotionally aware, or if you studied psychology or personality dynamics, you naturally are trained to look for root causes, understand trauma, believe in growth, hold space for complexity. So when you see behavior in somebody that feels a little off, you don't immediately label it as manipulation. You may interpret it, contextualize it, you may humanize it and think, oh, there's something deeper going on there. And sometimes there is. But here's the critical distinction. Understanding behavior is not the same as excusing it. Insight does not equal safety. And here's the deal. Many left behind spouses have a feeling of, oh, I don't give up on people. I'm going to help someone through their darkness. I can help them. And when someone comes in presenting as misunderstood, wounded, searching, maybe emotionally complex, it activates something powerful in you. And that's not weakness, it's purpose. And you really start to think, oh, I see you, I get you, I'm not going to go anywhere. And that creates a bond that feels almost sacred because you are bonding to potential. But you guys, that's where you were bonding to potential, not consistent reality. And that part is huge because what feels like deep emotional intimacy early on can actually be accelerated vulnerability. It can be the mirroring emotional intensity without stability. So instead of intimacy building over time, it appears fully formed early on. And for someone who values depth, that's going to feel like, oh, this is it. But real intimacy is built on consistency, accountability, that's a huge one, and truth over time, not intensity. And here's the deal for somebody who feels like they really want to help someone, here's where it turns. Because when things start to feel off, you don't immediately run. You lean in. You try to understand even better. You communicate even more. You reflect more. You try to fix what feels misaligned because you believe if I just understand it better, we can get back to what we had. But what you had was never stable to begin with because what you see is not a real person. It's the facade they are giving to you. And you guys, you hang in there trying to make sense out of what you're being shown. But then it can happen. The shift, the coldness, the detachment, the affair, the discard, the rewriting of your entire relationship, Darvo. And you're left thinking, oh my God, who is this person? Because the person you knew, well, they weren't fully real. It was a version. It was a version that was maintained as long as it served them. And for highly empathetic, insightful people, this doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your sense of reality because your identity includes being perceptive, being emotionally intelligent, and reading people accurately. So when this happens, it doesn't just feel like betrayal. It feels like, oh my God, I failed at something I should have known. But we're going to stop you right there because that's not true. You didn't fail. You were dealing with a system that doesn't operate on mutual transparency. You were bringing honesty, consistency, emotional truth, and a willingness to improve whatever was going on with that person. But that dynamic, it was built on image, control, and validation. And those systems don't match. Just know, the more perceptive you are, the more sophisticated the mask had to be. So this wasn't about you being blind. This was about the illusion being that strong. And if you were ever sick during that relationship, when you needed support, instead of leaning in, they pulled away. Or worse, they might have been bothered by your healing process, by your reminders of love or your support system or your fight. And that wasn't about you. Just know that was about their inability to tolerate vulnerability, discomfort, and their inability to tolerate not being the center of the emotional experience. And that is not something that you ever could have fixed. A lot of folks assume narcissistic personalities only choose weak, insecure people, but that's not actually true. Many choose highly empathetic people, emotionally intelligent people, competent, successful, nurturing, and resilient people. And why is that, you guys? It's because strong partners like yourselves provide emotional regulation, stability, image enhancement. You provide grounding, admiration from others, and structure. In many ways, the emotionally strong partner becomes the nervous system of the relationship. Many narcissistic or emotionally underdeveloped people feel deeply unstable internally, even if they appear confident outwardly. So when they meet someone grounded, it feels stabilizing for them. Your calm becomes their calm. Your identity becomes their identity. And your structure becomes their structure. And early on, they often genuinely idolize you for this. They may say things like, "Oh, you saved me. You made me so much better. I've never felt this safe." You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And at that time, they may even believe it. But over time, that dynamic changes. The stronger the emotionally healthy partner is, the more they eventually become a mirror. And mirrors become dangerous to someone whose identity is fragile. Because over time, your consistency exposes their inconsistency. Your integrity exposes their deception. Your maturity exposes their impulsiveness without you even trying. And your stability becomes a silent confrontation. And now you add midlife crisis into this, and suddenly, instead of seeing the strong partner as grounding, they begin seeing you as a reminder of responsibility, a reminder of the aging, a reminder of reality itself. And this is where projection begins. And instead of saying, to themselves that they feel empty, it becomes, you made me unhappy. Instead of them struggling with identity, it becomes, oh, this marriage has trapped me. And instead of them realizing and saying that they're dissatisfied internally, all of a sudden, it's like, you're the reason I never became who I wanted to be. Because now your emotional insight becomes threatening. You notice the inconsistencies, and you ask questions, and you sense distance, and you start to hold them accountable to reality. And to someone who's trying to escape themselves, that feels totally unbearable. So they begin pulling toward people who require far less accountability, if any. And this is one of the worst parts for left behind spouses, because many affair partners appear less emotionally mature, less stable, less accomplished, less grounded, often have personality disorders. And that attracts the MLCer. And to all of us sitting there, we go, oh my God, why would somebody dismantle their entire life, throw away their loving spouse, throw away their loving family, possibly their career and reputation? Why would they destroy their legacy for that? Well, it's because the affair partner often serves a psychological purpose, not a life purpose, but a psychological purpose, a fantasy, an escape, admiration without history, low accountability, emotional chaos mistaken for passion, validation without responsibility. The affair relationship, if you want to call it an affair, it often exists outside normal reality. There's no mortgage, no parenting history, no decades of unresolved shame within that person. There's no mirror that they're looking into. And that can feel intoxicating to someone who is in emotional collapse. And this is totally devastating to experience, because the very person who supported them, defended them, loved them through everything, now suddenly gets rewritten, unsupportive, judgmental, the obstacle to their happiness. And why is this? Because psychologically, they need a villain to justify abandoning the life they built. And the stronger the spouse is, the more dramatic that rewrite is going to be. And one thing about the devoted left behind spouses, emotionally intelligent people often stay longer than many others would. Because as an emotionally intelligent person, you're sitting there thinking, oh, they must be depressed. Maybe this is, stress due to work. This isn't the real them. Maybe I can communicate better and get this back on track. But what you don't realize is this: the relationship dynamic itself has fundamentally changed. And many of you out there have experienced the cruelty, coldness, emotional detachment, shark eyes, lack of empathy, public humiliation, affairs, darvo, blame shifting. And you think, like anybody would, how can someone that I love for 20 or 30 years behave like this? And it's because once the strong spouse is recast as the problem, the narcissistic defenses intensify. Now they're protecting the affair, the placeholder, the fantasy, the new identity, the escape narrative. And then empathy towards you just becomes completely inconvenient. You were not discarded because you lacked value. You were discarded because your value required them to confront themselves, and they chose escape instead. I would say 99% of you out there are dealing with a midlife crisis spouse who is too cowardly to look in the mirror and fix themselves instead. So they run. And to those listening who built families, businesses, homes, stability, and then watch someone walk away from it all, Please know your strength was real, your love was real, your commitment was real. And the fact that someone could not sustain the emotional maturity required to honor that, it doesn't diminish what you brought into the relationship. Sometimes the strongest partner in the relationship becomes the most painful mirror. And rather than rise to meet that mirror, some people run from it. And that's not because you were too little, but because deep down, you required them to become more than they were willing to become. If you've been discarded, devalued, rewritten, or blamed, I want you to remember something tonight. The collapse of someone else's character is not proof of your lack of worth. Sometimes the strongest people are chosen precisely because they create stability. And sometimes they are discarded because they expose their partner's instability. So, to my dear bomb squad out there, to you left behind spouses that are sitting there wondering, how did this happen? Please know you are not broken, you are not naive, and you are certainly not too much. You are someone who brings depth, loyalty, and truth into relationships. And the next time you give that, it will be to someone who doesn't need a mask to meet you there. So remember, we're all in this together, and you are not alone. Go out and have a great day. Stay strong. Don't chase the blast. And we'll see you in the next episode. Hey guys, this is Trina, and I want to take a moment to speak directly to anyone who didn't choose the collapse, but is living with the aftermath. When a spouse enters midlife crisis, the damage doesn't unfold slowly. It happens like an explosion. One day you're living a shared life with your best friend, and the next moment, that person that you have trusted and loved for so many years has emotionally disappeared almost overnight, rewriting history, minimizing the damage, and running from the very family they helped build. Friends are confused, the story gets simplified, and the spouse left behind is often expected to handle it quietly, gracefully, all while absorbing the fallout all alone. After the bomb drop, a survival guide for the left behind spouse was written for you. This book doesn't offer platitudes or false hope. It names what others avoid. Inside, I will walk you through what is actually happening when someone runs from themselves, why chasing answers only deepens the wound, and how to stabilize your life after emotional abandonment. In this book, we talk about why these departures feel so sudden and destabilizing, because in fact, they are destabilizing, and why the spouse who stays is often blamed, erased, or silenced. Why saving yourself is not abandonment, and how to grieve someone who is still alive while finding your footing again. This book does not promise reconciliation. It offers you guys something more necessary at this time, and that is stability, dignity, and a way forward when someone else has chosen to run after the bomb drop. The Survival Guide for the Left Behind Spouse is available now on Amazon Kindle in both ebook and paperback. It's also available in audio version on Spotify. And if you're standing in the blast radius and wondering how to survive what you did not cause, this book was written for you. Hey, some resources that are available for you guys are thewifeexpert.com. That's Lori McDermott over there at thewifeexpert.com. She also has a new app out. There's tons of videos that can give you all kinds of information on no matter where you are on your MLC journey or trying to reconcile with your spouse. So check out thewifeexpert.com. And if you're not sure if your spouse or yourself is in maybe approaching or in a midlife crisis, be sure to check out Kenda Root's quiz at midlifecrisismarriageadvocate.com. Again, that's a midlifecrisismarriageadvocate.com. That's a quick little 2-minute quiz. It's free. So check that out as well. We have a ton of resources out there for you guys. So check them out. Thanks. Hey, if you have a story you'd like to share with our listeners, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email mlcbombdrop@gmail.com. Again, that's mlcbombdrop@gmail.com. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. The stories and events discussed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or professional advice. Any names, locations, or identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or real events are purely coincidental. The information presented on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with a qualified expert regarding any decisions related to your specific situation. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the podcast creators.